All right, so good morning, everyone. Hello from London, and good afternoon if you are joining us from further east. My name is Marie. I'll be hosting this webinar together with my colleagues Alain and Say. And so welcome to this webinar around future-proofing forests with satellite data and regenerative practices. Before I introduce you to our amazing speakers today, just a few words about EverImpact. So we're a team of 30 people based in Europe, and we're on a mission to accelerate decarbonization with better data. We do this by monitoring area-based greenhouse gas emissions in real time using sensors, satellites, and AI data. So we monitor carbon across several industries, cities, transport, maritime, and of course, nature, which is the focus today. And these are some of our global clients and partners we have been working with in the past few years. So a few words about our speakers today. So my name is Marie. I'm also a very humble forest owner in France. And when I was a teenager, I wanted to become a forest engineer, but unfortunately, I joined the dark side and became a chief marketing officer. But luckily for you, I'm here together with two of our experts, starting with Alain, our CTO.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me well? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Alain. I'm one of the three co-founders of this company. I'm actually the chief technology officer of the company. I am an agronomist and a forester by training. I spent my career, meaning 40 years now, doing rural development, post-conflict recovery, post-natural disaster, and also I was the founder and the manager for a decade of the United Nations Satellite Center. And now we are focusing from the private sector side on the issue that Mary has mentioned earlier.
And hi everyone, so I'm Scalable, Chief Product Officer of EverImpact, space system and software architecture engineer by training, and leading in tandem with Alain our technical team, which includes biomass and carbon accounting, modeling experts, remote sensing engineers, and software engineers.
Thanks, Say, for the intro. So this is the agenda for today's session. We'll start with an overview of advanced monitoring approaches, so how you can analyze your past, present, and future forest health, as well as carbon and forestry practices. Then we'll look into how you can forecast your forest evolution using climate models. And then in the second part of our webinar, we will walk you through how to make your forest more resilient with regenerative forestry practices. Then Alain will explain how the team at EverImpact use all these monitoring solutions and insight and the forestry expertise from the team to regenerate an old forest in Japan. And finally, we'll close with some Q&A. So feel free to type your questions as they come up to your mind, and we'll try to cover as many as possible at the end of the session. So I'm going to hand over to Say. Say, can you tell us a bit more about what forest owners and managers can monitor at scale? And most importantly, how the different approaches such as satellite, climate modeling, and ground data can be combined.
Yeah, sure, Marie. So for a starter, let's start with what does imply to become a company which wants to develop an expertise in analyzing past and present forest health and carbon and forestry practices. So at EverImpact, what we have done is that we have developed an in-depth expertise leveraging two different kinds of data. First comes the satellite data, satellite imagery, Earth observation data. This kind of data gives you the scalability, it gives you the possibility to monitor a very large area at the landscape scale. It can help you to monitor the land use evolution on the grounds, to understand the real, let's say, disaggregation of the different tree species and the tree ages that you see on the ground, meaning the forest inventory can help you to develop an in-depth and precise forest inventory for different forested areas, and also help you to monitor the carbon sequestration dynamics on the grounds. Second kind of database that we have developed an expertise at is ground truth. So ground truth gives you the accuracy of what you're trying to model. It helps you to validate and calibrate your model, and that you have developed thanks to the large-scale satellite imagery. What you're seeing here is actually, you know, a classical trends, classical and logical evolution of the land use on the ground. So land use being one of the major, if not the most important factor of global warming and altering carbon stock and future sequestration capacity. By exposing your land to further alteration from a primary forest to agricultural lands to artificialized lands, you actually altering the capacity of your land to sequestrate carbon. And so now, given the work that we are doing collectively, and I hope that you also all engage into that kind of endeavors, we are now replanting forests to regenerate basically the lands. So what you're gonna see in these new slides is actually the effect of deforestation in a part of Amazonian forest in Bolivia for the last 20 years. We are able to monitor that thanks to two different satellite missions, Earth observation satellite missions. The first one is the Landsat mission, which has been launched by NASA since 1975. And what the NASA mission gives us is actually pictures of the grounds at a resolution of 30 meters by 30 meters with an historical depth of 20 years. And the other kind of data that we use is a byproduct of the European Commission, European program, which is the Copernicus program, which has been launched in 2011. And it gives us a 10 meter by 10 meter resolution of the grounds. Now, what are the benefits of the land use advanced monitoring? We count 5 benefits. The first one being that we can check and monitor the additionality of carbon projects. Of course, so by understanding what happened in the past, we can, what are the trends on the alteration of the grounds, and meaning the generation of the carbon sequestration, we are able to identify what we call the baseline, meaning what should happen in the future if we continue with the same kind of activities, with the same kind of pressure on the forested ecosystems. Second benefit is that we can also check if the supply chain of different kind of products is deforestation free. Meaning, the European Commission has released a directive that force the companies will have to prove that their supply chain is deforestation free, and this new regulation has been released in last June 23. Third benefit is that we are now able to assess the soil quality and the trend of this soil quality, understanding better how the biodiversity of the soil, of the grounds, has been affected by the anthropogenic pressure. Fourth benefit is that we can come back in the past, understanding the social and historical context of the land use change. And by doing so, we are now able to better assess if the project that we are implementing on the grounds will see the same kind of of anthropogenic pressure. By understanding what happened in the past, we can better also project ourselves in the future and understanding if it will come back again, if the same kind of activities and pressure will come back again in the future. The fifth one is basically that we are able to identify regeneration opportunities at the land scale, if not the continental scale, thanks to satellite imagery. Understanding, again, the trend in the past, understanding the soil quality, understanding the capacity that we can, the opportunity that we have to regenerate ground, the ecosystem. We have a good understanding of where are the best opportunities to develop new carbon projects. So now, waiting for the new slide, Marie. I think, oh yeah,
it's
perfect.
coming.
Thank you very much.
A bit delayed.
So yeah, something that we need to understand is that optimizing forest sequestration is actually a very balancing act. When we measure the photosynthetic activity of the trees cover, and what we need to do is that we need to gather 3 different kind of databases to measure the 3 main drivers of the growth of the forest. First comes the ecophysiological parameters to better understand the genetics of the trees and how their genes are expressed based on their species and how they are, which drive their sequestration potential under a certain climate. And that's exactly the second aspect of the second main driver is the climate, actually. So the question is, what are the exact weather conditions, such as rainfall, humidity, temperature, sun radiations, that drive the growth of the trees and meaningful, the forest, basically. And finally comes the characteristic of the soil, its texture, the clay content, its acidity, or even its capacity of exchange of cation, and its fertility. And that's by assessing those 3 different kind of information that we are able to balance and to better propose new improved forest management practices on the ground. So now, using all those different data to measure, understand, and model the reality of the life of the forests, help us to better assess how the biomass is going to evolve, has evolved in the past, but is also going to evolve in the future, from the past to today, and and how has been the carbon sequestration performance of the trees, how it has affected the evolution of the soil organic carbon, and finally, what is the health of the trees that we are monitoring. So we are using, again, the forest inventory, and we are developing those carbon sequestration performance model to understand how it's going to evolve in the future. Now, Alain, would you like to explain a little bit how we use those ground truth data to validate and calibrate the models?
Yes, of course. So actually, to validate and calibrate the models, when it comes from a large database built of satellite imagery, there is a need for ground data. In fact, what can be seen from space gives us a good picture of the overall dynamics. But in order to understand how this end result is happening, you need to look below the trees from the ground to understand much better how it works, and therefore how can it be predicted. So, because now, in fact, forecasting the evolution of the forest is essential. Why? Because we are ongoing a very rapid climate change process that impacts the forest. And first of all, you need to understand better what are the climate change that you need to be prepared to. A tree actually takes average lifetime over a century. And we have now predictions about climate change that are quite reliable because they've been proved to be true until present. They started basically 20, 30 years ago. So we know that the projection of IPCC are correct so far. And those impacts actually, climate change scenarios are impacting the biomass and the carbon sequestration. Therefore, the productivity of the forest, there are positive effects, for example, when it comes to the increase of CO2 concentration in the background atmosphere. Which is positive, but there are also very negative effects, which are increased risk. So say we'll detail a little bit more in the following slides, the type of risk, but just looking at the news, you're aware that forests are burning, and one of the major risks that foresters has to consider today is actually the risk of forest fire that has the potential to destroy the carbon credit that you may engage in your forest. So simulating the impact of climate change, it's today relatively easy. It was not the case until quite recently, but now it's possible to downscale those scenarios and use them to understand better how the key parameters of the climate are going to drive the forest evolution. There are two essential variables that need to be taken into account when you analyze the evolution of the forest, and what you need to be prepared to is actually the temperature and the rainfall. They are connected. Rainfall basically provide the water to the forest, which is an essential element for the biomass to develop. But temperature matters a lot. Temperature, when a certain level of rainfall is stable, if the temperature rises, generally it means that summers or dry season will be more serious, and therefore you have a backwards effect on the forest that will, in the sense that the forest will close its stomachs, and therefore limit its evaporation, and therefore this will stop the photosynthesis activity, and therefore stop the carbon sequestration process. So analyzing temperature and rainfall is essential for driving the planning of the forest management looking forward. So when you're clear with this evaluation, you can actually simulate the total biomass and also the carbon in kilograms that your forest will accumulate. So you look backwards in the history, and then you look forward by basically integrating the climate change scenarios to get a good picture of what is likely to be your potential for carbon sequestration. Of course, you need to differentiate the different type of species because they don't have the same phenology. Therefore, they don't have the same lifetime cycle either. So it's very important when you do a forecast on the future biomass and carbon sequestration to differentiate the different key species that are composing your forest. Next, please, Marie.
I think she's experiencing very bad connection issues.
Ah, yeah. Marie?
I see the mouse moving.
Don't have the control there.
No. Perfect. I'm gonna continue from that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's detection.
Yeah, no problem. Risk detection.
The slide should be coming any minute.
It's here, Marie, no problem.
Can you see the slide?
Yes,
Yes.
we can see it. So risk detection. Yeah, so by monitoring in real time and in continue your forest thanks to Earth observation, satellite imagery, you are able to have a live monitoring of your and quickly detect, even preventively, different kind of risk by deforestation, logging, illegal logging, wildfires, drought, floods, pests. But something that we need to have in mind is that Earth observation data from now, for the moment, is still a little bit limited because the different kind of let's say wavelength or even frequency of the light that we are getting from space are limited. We are, for the moment, for example, for the European Commission satellite missions, we are limited around something around between 10 and 13 different frequency of the lights. What we are seeing now on the market of Earth observation is that we are seeing emerging a new kind of data, which is called hyperspectral data, and which is giving us hundreds of those frequency of the lights, which can allow us to better understand the chemistry and the physical composition of the matter that we are observing from space. And this kind of new data will bring tremendous new insight and capacity of analysis of the grounds by understanding better the water stress of the trees, the health of the trees, the different pigments that the trees are, have in their wood and in their leaves. Sorry. So my main message here is that from now on, in a very short amount of time, we're gonna expand our capacity of monitoring those risks thanks to Earth observation. And the beauty of our products is that this reliable and real-time data is accessible every time, anytime and anywhere through our web application or also through our API, and is going to help you to build all your reports and to build your monitoring capacity thanks to our different kind of products.
Know that we've understood, all the fascinating insight that we can get on our forest and their past, present, and even future condition. Alain, can you tell us a bit more about how you apply this insight to your forestry practices to support and really regenerate your forest?
Yes, with pleasure. So, in fact, I'm going to explain you this aspect using the case in Japan. So basically, the whole issue for us is to be able to recommend to our clients how can regenerative forestry practices can be put in place based on the robust databases that we are preparing thanks to the combination of satellite imagery and proper ground truthing. So the first thing is to get a baseline and a future sequestration data. So this is basically by comparing the historical practices and integrating the elements of the climate change scenarios. And this gives you basically a baseline to plan your regeneration program. So basically, you can do a lot of things, but mainly the two key activities are actually removing trees when they're at maturity and replacing them with species that are more resilient to the future climate that you need to prepare and help your forest to cope with. And when you have this regeneration plan defined with the carbon sequestration performance data, you're in a position to prepare what is called a PDD, that stands for Project Description Document, that you need to prepare according to the methodological standard that you want to apply in order to engage the forest in a carbon credit scheme that, of course, generate the revenue needed to cover the cost of the adaptation program that you have designed for your forest.
Thanks,
Next,
Alain.
please.
So can you tell us about how we actually apply all this insight and data into a real forest through this case study in Japan?
Yes, of course. So in fact, the case that I'm presenting here has been carried out at the call of Hitachi System, which is a major Japanese, well-known Japanese group, and that has engaged recently in supporting local governments that are in charge in Japan to help local land forest owners to carry out this process of engaging their forest in a sustainable development process. So we have this case is concerning actually a forest which is 3,900 hectares large, and of course we have engaged in support to our clients to design a solution to monitor and optimize the health and carbon sequestration of that forest. So the monitoring solution is based on the satellite imagery, the best available data existing. We are also carrying out, based on those satellite imagery, a compilation of data analysis. So from the point of view of the carbon and biomass expertise, we integrate, of course, the climate change impact modeling. We do in-depth knowledge. We inject in-depth knowledge on sustainable forestry practices, which is a domain that is evolving very quickly today, and the data are available through a simple API to ease the interaction with the landowners, the forest managers, and the financiers. The conceptual analysis of the forest is absolutely important. We need to have a clear mapping of the forest, and we need to understand in which context is taking place, what are the surrounding human activities in order to identify the eventual threats on the forest. And we are looking at seasons to identify deciduous and conifers. This is a beauty that allows us satellite imagery, because, for example, in the case of this forest, when you look at the forest in the summertime and you look at it in the wintertime, you can see clearly the difference between the coniferous and the broadleaf trees. The broadleaf losing their leaves in the wintertime are easily detectable on the satellite imagery, as you can see on the right side, the picture on the right side. So then, of course, we have digitalized 50 years of forest management. This is important because it gives us a possibility to understand what is the structure of the forest with different species. And you will recall that what I said earlier about the phenology, different species means different phenology, different lifetimes. Next, please. Yeah. And of course, also matters the forest management, and in particular, the age of the trees that are depending on the year they were planted in that case. So here we have the map of the forest that is aggregating the plots by the age of the trees. Next, please. So we have this baseline, which is a tree species classification. Mainly the two basic component of this particular forest, which is roughly 2/3 of the forest area in coniferous, evergreen coniferous, relatively short time living cycle, but highly productive and very rapidly growing at the beginning of their lifetime. And in light green, you can see the conifers that are longer standing but less productive at the beginning, but more stable over time in terms of carbon sequestration performance. So next, please. Of course, it's very important to map the forest by plot. Why? Because the plots refers to property title, and you need to know that engaging carbon credits is a right that is belonging to the landowner that owns actually the land where the trees are growing. So therefore, they may transfer their rights to external agents, like it is the case in our case. They're transferring that to a body that has been put in place by the local government, and this structure is also transferring to Hitachi, to helping them access the standard through a PDD that register the carbon credits allocation and is able to redistribute the revenue of the carbon credits to the landowners. So here you have the forest structure. It's an histogram that is very clear and useful from the management point of view, because you can clearly see that, in fact, this forest is composed massively of trees that are in their very vast majority over 50 years and up to 100 years, with a very strong peak between 50 and 60, basically between 50 and 70, which is the vast majority. This meaning that this forest is mature and is in need for management, for exploitation and regeneration. In order to prepare the improved forest management plan, it's very important to design a sampling system. So here we have done that in the forest to locate actually from the satellite image where are the spots that are relevant to be ground truth through the forest site visit. Of course, combining satellite data is challenging. One of the reasons is that the cloud cover need to be removed in order not to affect the values that you will derive from satellite imagery to get a clue on the photosynthetic activity index. Of course, clouds need to be removed, but also the shadow of the clouds. So it's a quite complex data processing, especially when you're talking about a long time series, like we are in this case, 20 years of data. 20 years of data with an average of a satellite image every 10 days. So it's quite a sizable database, and we need to have cleared every single satellite image from the cloud cover and the shadow associated to it. Next, please. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you are able to come up with this type of graphs that are extremely useful from the operational point of view. In this first graph, you can see for the broadleaf plots, we have compared in red the older broadleaf plots with the younger 15 years old broadleaf tree. So you can see that there is a significant difference between the behavior of the younger trees as opposed to the older trees. Next, please. Of course, having compiled all this data allow us to have year after year appreciation of the photosynthetic dynamics and therefore the carbon sequestration end result. And you can see that it's not the same from one year to another. We have years where the photosynthetic is far more, like you see here in 2014, for example. It was a very favorable year with a very productive year. While, for example, 2017 was a drier, and even 2016, even some segment of the forest were almost non-productive. This is the reason why when you cut a tree, you can see that the circles are not necessarily of the same distance from the one to the other. This is because of the difference of climate from one year to another. Now also using those satellite imagery based data sets, you're able also to differentiate the performance of the two key categories of trees that we have in this forest, which are the coniferous and the broadleaf trees. So the coniferous appears in red and the broadleaf appear in blue. And you can see that if you draw the regression line, you can see that in fact the decline in this particular forest is slightly higher in the case of the coniferous and more stable with the broadleaf trees. This gives us essential information for planning the improved forest management plan. So the site visit was carried out in July to confirm the satellite imagery findings and to plan the improved management program that has a double objective to maintain the forest, adapt it to climate change, and regenerate it. So as you can see on this, you have two pictures. The two on the left side, a very dense forest with soil which is very thin. Next, please. So the key findings can be summarized in 5 key points. One, it's a forest that is losing diversity. It's basically a single species for most of the area, mainly coniferous, Japanese cedar or cryptomeria. It's an aging forest, 70 years old, with a declining photosynthetic index. We found out during the field visit that the inventory was incorrect, so the ages were not accurate. In fact, they were with a delay of about 20 years. So meaning that what was mapped in first instance of being 50 years old trees are in fact 60 to 70. So the forest is even older than what the records were saying. We have the climate change modeling revealed that we need to be prepared to drier conditions because the rainfall remains stable while the temperature will rise. Current carbon sequestration was established, and the future carbon sequestration simulated with and without mitigation measure, because the difference between the two are actually the quantity, the volume of carbon credit that you're allowed to engage. So mitigation measures identified to increase the carbon storage and generate credits were basically 4 elements. First, an intervention to remove the older trees and make space for natural regeneration. Plant younger trees to increase sequestration levels and biodiversity. Regenerate the forest mainly with broadleaf trees that are more adapted to the climate scenarios that we need to be prepared to. And of course, update the forest inventory in order to generate the project description document that is to be submitted to Vera later this month.
Thank you so much, Alain and Say, for taking us through all this. Now we are going to take some questions from the floor. I had a question on timelines for a project like this. You know, timelines for doing the analysis and then the ground truthing and the PDD. Can you tell us a bit about the general timelines?
Yes, from the data processing side, it's a couple of months, I would say 3 months typically. And to develop the PDD, it's another 3 months minimum to get to the precision required by the standards.
And I will add that you know, by continuously improving our products, we are pretty confident that we can you know, move from those 3 months for the data processing to, you know, very quick assessment like 1 month or something like that.
Okay, and the time scales of the intervention, so like the regeneration activities. I mean, how far into time do you plan them?
Remodeling a forest, like in the case of Japan, it's a process that has to be carried out for at least 2 decades. Of course, the intensity and the time frame for restoration depends on the means that the forest manager is able to deploy on the ground. So it's a sort of a compromise. The sooner the better, but it needs also to be deployed on a relatively long period for a simple reason, which is in the case of Japan that I presented earlier is a very meaningful one, in a sense that one of the problems of this forest and its misadaptation to climate change is basically all the trees are more or less the same age. And to rebalance the age pyramid, you need to program your planting over a relatively long period of time. So in fact, the period of engagement of the forest for a carbon credit is usually a minimum 30, most frequently 60 years, and you can go up to 100 years.
All right. Well, fascinating. It's a long end game. Well, I think this was a great session. Thank you, Say and Alain, for taking the time to share your expertise and experience on projects. So as a final word, I would say that this type of insight is really extremely powerful to future-proof your forest. So as you know, with great power comes great responsibility. So I will like to invite you to join us in regenerating forests at scale so that they can maximize their impact in the fight against both the climate and biodiversity crisis. So thank you for your time. We have some contact details here if you want to follow up on conversation with our 2 experts. And so thank you for your time and have a great Christmas as well. Bye-bye. Thank you.